Hi, I'm Kurt Fearnley and welcome to 1+1. Nornie Bero is passionate about getting more Indigenous ingredients into kitchens. The Torres Strait Islander chef and business owner believes that food starts conversations. So we came down here to Federation Square in Melbourne to talk about cooking, culture, and of course, some taste testing. Nornie Bero, welcome to 1+1.
Thank you for having me.
We're down here at Big Esso in the middle of Fed Square. Dawn is just breaking because it's the only time I think it's not bursting with people. I love the place.
Thank you very much.
I feel like when I come into this, into Big Esso, it's like an extension of you. There's light, there's colour, there's a full experience.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to have a place that was like my childhood growing up, you know? And there's nothing like seeing the ladies that I grew up with every colour of the rainbow on them. So I thought, why not bring that to Fed Square? Let's just bombard the whole square with as much colour and brightness and the happiness that of like growing up, like, you know, we're a smiley, fun kind of community and the island. So I wanted to bring that and that comfort of being in a village.
Can you tell me about the growing up in the Torres Strait, growing up in that real island life?
Oh yeah, I mean, island life is like exactly that. You wake up, you walk on the reef, you know, you hunt, you gather, you plant things, you grow up around your families or the extended villages all together as well. You eat, you sort of grow up in this atmosphere where you own your own spear and you go out and you catch things and you're a part of that life circle that goes around. There was always food around us because you're just picking it off the tree or getting it out of the ocean or whenever you're hungry, you always had something to eat. So you're not wealthy monetary wise, but you never go hungry and you never think you're unwealthy because there's an abundance of stuff there.
So food's been a part of your life for a long time then?
Oh yeah.
Like as in, so the passion for food has been a part of your life for a long time?
Yeah, I've been pickling since I was before double figures.
What were you pickling?
Well, I would go out on the reef and get fresh octopus every day, and then I would cook that and pickle it that day that I got it and eat the day before and just have that. But then I grew up with tamarind trees and mango trees, and I would basically skip confirmation classes and just have my jars of tamarinds and pick them off the trees and then put soy sauce and sugar in them and then shake them until it all dissolved. And I would pickle them and then just sit there and eat them.
Who taught you how to do that?
I don't know. I just always was very experimental with things. But yeah, it's about that multicultural sort of experience of growing up in the Torres Strait as well because of, you know, that influence from the pearl diving and the beach dimmer and Japanese settling into our families and then marrying into our families and then having this broad way of food being mixed in with us. So our island dishes become marinated in soya sauce to then enhance the extra flavors that we then have traditional dishes that have these ingredients in it too as well because it's very tropical and people don't realize that we grow up with like wild tea grass, which is our version of lemongrass and all that stuff and chilies and wild gingers and all that kind of stuff and because it's so tropical up there.
Was it part of a family passion, the food?
Oh yeah. I learned from my dad from the get-go. He was very entrepreneurial, I guess, but I think it was out of necessity more because we needed to have petrol to run the generator because all houses are run by generators or you would have kerosene lamps. So, and he would always be like, oh, I need $20 because that's 20 litres of petrol. So that was before I was in double figures. So you can imagine paying $1 a litre already compared to now, you know. And yeah, he was like, well, how are we going to get money into the household? So he turned half of our house into a tuck shop. He put a bamboo wall down the middle of the living room, turned half of it to a tuck shop, and he would make fresh pumpkin buns and pumpkin damper, and then I would deliver it before school. And then they would go out getting big fish and then slice it up and make fish burgers for like the locals to come and buy it. And he used to pay me in marbles. Great currency back then. I always had a milk tin full of marbles, you know, that I'd pay scomps with at the front of our house with the local kids.
I love marbles. Marbles are bloody awesome.
I know. And we just had the milk tins because we grew up with powdered milk. So, you know, you don't get fresh milk up there. So you just grow up with powdered milk and canned butter and stuff. So it was very interesting.
I think there's got to be somebody who's about to go take the mobile device or the Xbox out of the kids' hands now and drop a tin full of marbles and just see
I
what
know,
happens.
right? Like, you know, now they're all sitting in air conditioning and just like on their PlayStations and stuff and on the internet. But yeah, back then, marbles was it. Like, that was your PlayStation.
Tell me more about your dad.
My dad was pretty cool. Like, you know, he was somebody that I suppose I was lucky, like being raised by a single father. You know, he taught me how to know where I come from and who I am and, you know, make me stand on my own 2 feet. He was very empowering in the sense that he was very pro, you know, female. Like when I was born, he would tell me the story about my grandparents. And we have a tradition that when you hear like a wanpun, which is a gecko, they're either giving you good news or bad news. And he would say to me this story about Grandma and Grandpa visited him when I was born. And he would say that they were happy that his first kid was a girl. So I don't know, I've always been very proud of him being very pro-women and really kind of being that strong force behind me. I mean, when you grow up with a single father and he's 20 years old and he's this big black man, you know, he could do anything he wanted. Like he was 20 when he was left with I was 18 months old. And island adoption happens all the time up in the Straits. And for some reason he was like, oh, I'm just going to keep you because, you know, it's my duty, I guess, and it's my job to, you know, raise you. And he did his best. And but he taught me how to be very traditional and how to be respectful. You know, respecting your culture and respecting who you are and making sure that you make the right choices. And choices, but I had a freedom as well. Because as any kid grows up with a single father, you have more leeway, I think. They're a little bit more softer.
So whether or not you wrap yourself around his finger or he just allows that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we're a team, you know. I just had this great respect for him because he did the best he could for what he was dealt, you know, and that didn't make me think my situation was any less wherever we lived, as long as we were together and we were a team, I guess.
What was the first thing he taught you to cook?
Oh, damper, definitely. Pumpkin damper, actually, to be specific. It was pumpkin damper, and I still make it today. I think it might have been a ploy to make me eat more vegetables, you know? Like, hide it in the bread, you know? Everybody loves a bit of bread, you know? And then you're going to lather it with the golden syrup butter, so why not hide some pumpkin in it?
Relationships with your parents, they change over time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I understand that he got ill when you were young.
Oh, yeah. He started to get ill very, very young, like in his 30s, you know, and in his early 30s as well. His arthritis got really, really bad. And, you know, he stopped being able to do the stuff that he wanted to do. And I don't think he got to achieve as much as he wanted to in his lifetime. And when you see somebody as strong as he was growing up and really wanting to stand on your own 2 feet and being that entrepreneurial style. And he had lots of dreams, you know, to do more. And to see him in that sort of state where he couldn't do those things was kind of heartbreaking in the sense that he still had all those dreams, don't worry. Even though he couldn't move around much, didn't mean the brain didn't stop working of all his dreams that he wanted to do. But, you know, going from that to then not being able to walk and dying so early that he did, I think just made me want to achieve for the both of us, because he never got to do it himself. And so maybe that's why I am the way that I am.
Do you think that that's where the drive comes from? Because, like, the caring for a parent when going through that, like, it can give you a bit of a jetpack, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, you want to do double as... You want to do extra, you know, because you want him to see you doing great. Like, you know, that maybe he can vicariously live through you of going, yeah, that is a part of me. And I just wanted him to, like, it's a bit sad he never got to see what we've achieved, you know, in the last few years, because he's been gone for a long time now. But I think he's singing somewhere up there, looking down.
What took you away from island life?
I wanted to achieve more in life. Like, you know, I love growing up on the islands. But if you want to kind of get your career in a right way or become a career-focused person. Plus, I also, you know, when you're a kid growing up on the islands, we're not raising doctors and lawyers. They're just making sure that you try and just get through school, you know, and my dad was so busy trying to put food on the table and stuff like that, that the education back then wasn't great. So going to high school and then sending me down to mainland Australia was like a whole other ball game, you know, and coming down to mainland Australia really changed my views of thinking about how I wanted to represent myself and represent being an island person and achieving more than just, you know, there is this, like, you know, push for us to be artists and athletes and stuff like that. And I think somewhere along the line, I probably wasn't going to be any of that. So, like, what do you do then if you're not going to be one of those? But I really had a love of that upbringing of food, and it just, I don't know, it just came naturally to go into that sort of area. When I first started my career in chefing, but I was still doing other jobs on the side, he was like, oh, you know, you're going to probably be a chef. And just like any kid, you're like, why would I listen to my parents? You know, why would I listen to you? I'll do whatever I want because, you know, I'm on the... And I did a lot of different things before I went into full-time chefing. But it just happened organically, and I had a really good time, you know. But the problem is that my dad was so sick, so I had to grow up so quickly. You know, and when you got to grow up so quickly, you have to stand on your own 2 feet really quickly, and you have to support yourself, and you want to support your family. You know, so I started very young. You know, I started working when I was 16.
Was there a culture shock from leaving the island, coming to the mainland?
Oh yeah, because when you grow up in the Torres Strait, it's so multicultural, you know, and everybody loves each other. No one hates each other, and you grow up around that welcoming and stuff. When you come to mainland Australia, in that city shock of like, oh wow, there is a separation. Here, you don't grow up like that in the Straits. There's no separation. Everybody is the same people. But you come down to mainland Australia, and then all of a sudden it's a little segregated a little bit, and you keep to your own packs.
What was your first job when you said you started working at 16? What were you doing?
Oh, I was working on the banana farms up in Innisfail. So my cousin and I went to work on the farms. My boss gave me the little Datsun, like to pick up all the workers in the morning, and I would pick them up in the morning for work. And obviously I only had a learner permit back then, but they all had full licenses, but I would do the driving. So then in the afternoon, I would drive them back home. And on the way home, they would be like, you want to stop in the pub, you know, and we'll just have a couple, and then you can drop us off after that. So I was like, yeah, sure. Like, you know, I can do that. I'll play some pool or hang out, you know, and stuff. And then what I started doing is, because I was hanging out there, I end up helping out, working in the kitchen. there as well. And she was like, you might as well do something while you're here. You want to come and jump in, you know? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, and that's where I basically got the bug of being in kitchens. And that was my first time working in kitchens, was just because I was hanging out waiting for the boys to finish a couple of beers before I had to drop them off. And that's how I started in kitchens.
Well, you've had an incredible career working in kitchens, in the hospitality industry overall. When you started in it, was it particularly welcoming to women at that point in time?
Oh, definitely not. It was the 90s, you know, and I had many people that went through, like, you know, coming through up in the lines of women that I was with, and like some of them cried every day, you know, and I was like, no, I grew up with this very strong father, a lot of cousin brothers. I was like, no, I'm not letting this get away from me. And I was determined, and I would basically just like work around them and steal their jobs, basically. I was like, I will be twice as good then, and you will no longer be here. So that's what I did. I just stuck it out. Like, this industry was not great for women back then. We were not in hired positions. We weren't, you know, we were just like in the background, basically, of doing things. And yeah, so I just was very determined. I was like, well, why should I give up? And I had to support myself as well. Like, you know, it's not like I had a choice. You know, I didn't go to uni. I was working from the day dot, and I wanted a job, and I wanted to work in this industry. So I fought for it, to stay in it. But it took me to one family to give me a go here. You know, I found it so difficult to find a job here in Victoria when I first came, and I had never been on unemployment before because I'd been working since I was 16, and I was earning my own money. And I went to an agency and I said, look, I really want a job in, like, this is my experience. Like, I want to kind of work. And she said to me, oh, well, you probably should do something with your hair. And I was like, I mean, literally, I can't do anything about that. Like, this is what I'm born with. You know, there's nothing, I can't do anything about this. So I just walked into the Grandview Hotel on Station Street in Fairfield, and I asked them if I could have a job, and he gave me my first hospitality job working in his cigar bar. And then I would moonlight in his kitchens while I was pouring pints in his cigar bar. And yeah, that's how I got my first job. I had to go out and get it myself, and because no one looked like me. And on top of that, being a woman in the industry, I also had a couple of boxes that I had to tick. I wasn't just a woman in the industry, but I was a black woman in the industry as well. And people who looked like me back then had this stereotype of like, oh, you just want to be another guy that was working in the industry. And it's like, well, no, actually, I love being a woman. I just want to work in the industry. So it was really interesting to be in that time to where we are today. But it took me to really fight for it.
What drew you abroad?
Oh, well, as anybody, when you come down to live in the big city, and everybody at that time and that age was going overseas, you know, so I wanted to just be a part of that culture too, where we were saving money, going over, and I just wanted to be the first in my family to go to a different country, to have a passport, you know, all those kind of things. And I just wanted to be like all my friends that I was growing up in the industry here with, that were all going overseas. So I did. I went over and worked in London, and when I went there, it was so awesome. Like, you know, I never had to fight so hard for a job. I was just like handed it, and no one cared what I looked like. And it was just amazing for me to go and work there. And
it was such
so
a significant change from Melbourne to London.
Oh, huge. Like 200% better. You know, I was just another person there. I wasn't a woman or a black woman. I was just like somebody that wanted to work. And actually, when I was there, I was Australian. And Australians, like, you know, in that time, were able to get amazing jobs in London at that time. So I was very lucky that You know, for the first time, I was proud to be Australian, like going to a different country, of going, yes, you know, like I just walked into, and it was so easy for me to find employment there compared to coming to Melbourne.
Isn't that funny? You had to leave the country to find the pride.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I had to go to London, and I worked in amazing Japanese restaurants over there. But when I came back to Melbourne, I had to start from scratch again because the scene here was still very male-dominated again. It's hilarious how you go away, you get so much experience, you come back and it means nothing, you know, because you still have to start from scratch again. But I was like, still determined. I was like, okay, well, I've done that over there, so I'll come back and I'll try a few different other cuisines that I could pick up more skills in. And I ended up working on Lygon Street for a really long time.
What is food to you?
Food is family, food is village, food is opening conversations to something different. You know, food brings us all together. And I find food to be happiness, you know, for people. You see people do food dances, or they have these smiley faces every time they taste something, or it's like a new adventure too as well. And that's what I like about food. Food just opens so much conversation of learning new things. And that's like learning new cultures for me. And I think food brings everybody together, and you cannot be any different over food because everybody has to eat. And the conversation is always open and free.
What story, what conversation are you telling with the ingredients and the food in Big Esso?
Well, I wanted to put our tiny little islands on the map, you know. I think you hear the word Torres Strait Islander, but majority of people don't even know where that is. And I wanted to showcase that we have Indigenous cuisine and this country has Indigenous cuisine. And we should be really embracing it because we're all Australian and it's all a part of us. That's the message I want, is that we're all Australian and we have great cuisine here that is ours as well, that we can stand on our own 2 feet and have our own dishes too as well.
So you might see me do a food dance, but I'm gonna put that risk out there. I'm gonna throw that disclaimer. Are we able to check out some of the ingredients that you've got here at Big Esso?
Oh yeah, we have so many that we can taste and smell, which is great.
I'm in.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So what do we have here? I need to put the disclaimer in. I love food.
Well, you and me both.
What have we got in front of us?
Well, this is some of the stuff that I use on like a daily basis for all of the food stuff that we do, especially all the ingredients that we like to use on site. And I've got a couple of my favorite dishes here that, you know, it's my upbringing sort of stuff. So first we'll start with our octopus dish here, which we call arti. I like to use language names on the menu too as well, because like we know what gnocchi is, you know, and that's the Italian language name, you know, for their dish. So this is arti, and growing up with arti is like our island of Mer, where I'm from, has the 8 tentacles, and the different tribes come from the arti. So the arti sits over the island to then gives you the 8 tribes, and I come from the Comet tribe. So it has a good meaning for us. And we've got some desert lime namjim, because I think desert limes are they're underrated compared to finger limes. That, you know, people know about finger limes, the most expensive lime out there. What I also do as well is we use many different types of seaweed here, and it's really cool because I get it wild harvested. I think there's so many great seaweeds out there that you can use to add freshness and also that delicious saltiness to them, and they're all different flavors as well.
How important in this is sustainability as well of all the products?
It's definitely on our top tier of things that we want to do, and especially food by mileage. You know, we want to try and make sure that we represent. And for me, the more Australian produce that we can use, the better it is for us.
Did you say food by mileage?
Yeah.
Explain that.
It means that your food is not getting delivered from too far away. I mean, we live in a world now where people talk about how organic everything should be, but are they buying it locally though? Or is it coming from overseas? When are we going to think about how far things come from and what it takes to bring them here? So we should be using more seasonal produce, and the seasonal produce that comes out of our own soil, because that comes from a little bit less time for you to get it, but it also supports your economy as well.
And I think in a time of COVID where we're finding that supply chains are pretty stretched.
Oh yeah, it's 100% stretched, but this is when it's a good opportunity to be reinvesting in our own cultivation, our own farms, helping the farmers that already exist, buying directly from them, helping them to upscale and produce so that it can supply us. We have a big country and we should be making those normal seasonal produce work well for us to sustain us. If other countries can do it, why can't we?
For sure. What about the chips?
Oh, the chips. Now, I'm a yam girl. I like yams. I think, see you later, potato. Hello, the yam. There is so many awesome, great yams that, I grew up with, and we have about 5 different types we use on the menu, and we use it in all different ways, and it like you can see by the look of them and the flavor of them as well, from taro chips to cassava. And growing up, that's the first thing I ever dug up as a kid. In your garden, you're digging up we call them maniotas, which is like yams. And after the 100th time you get over it, becomes a chore then to dig up your yam growing up. But it's the first thing I ever dug up and cultivated, because you take what you need and then you just bury it back down again and it still gives you more.
The last couple of years has been challenging in the hospitality industry. What got you through COVID?
Damper.
What do you mean?
Damper got me through COVID. So, when my dad, I looked to what my dad did, I was so worried about how was I going to keep the lights on for my restaurants and how was I going to pay my staff. So I thought, what did my dad do, to keep the lights on? And he made Damper, when he made his tuck shop. And so I changed my venue into the tuck shop to name it after him for that entrepreneurial skills that he had, but not that. It was done for necessity. He needed to keep the lights on for us. He needed to get the money to run the generator, and I needed to do the same, even though I don't pay my staff in marbles. I wish that currency came in. Maybe we could think about it. That could be the next Bitcoin. You don't know. But yeah, I wanted to keep the lights on, so I did damper workshops, and I did 6 to 7 of them a day. And I kept my staff that way and keeping us going. And I have a responsibility to the people that work for me. And it wasn't about me, it was about them. And, we all had to pull together to make this happen. And now I wanted to keep my village. I didn't want to lose them.
What do you think your dad would say if he come in here and saw all of this at Big Esso?
He was probably a bit soft. He would probably cry a lot. He wasn't a hard man. He was a big softie. I think he would weep a lot. But I would reckon that he would probably find himself a spot and maybe on the guitar having a sing along, all day long. I will always work twice as hard because I think his dream is never finished as well, and either is mine. So, I will always do it for the both of us.
Well, I think it's time to turn the cameras off because I want to get stuck into this.
Yeah, we need to start eating.
It smells and looks so amazing. But Nornie Bero, thanks for joining me on 1+1.
Thank you for having me. Let's get in there.